Hi guys, welcome to this video. In this video I would like to rank my top 22 resources for Italian. I will not rank them in a list of top 1 to 10, but I would rather categorize them into self-study, catching up, reading, writing category. Alright, I started my year off on good old Duolingo. Now, what can I say? I'm sure you've tried Duolingo. I'm sure you have your own opinion on it. So do I. I do believe it can be helpful if you use it the right way. I've actually written a blog post on this. I can link it down below. There's only so far you can go with Duolingo, and especially if you've learned some words before, it will get quite repetitive because you constantly have to review old vocabulary. Now, I had gotten to quite an intermediate level, so I was just cruising by a bit. I felt like I got a bit out of it, but it felt more like a game than a serious study. So then I went on a trip to France, and well, guess what? I went to a language store, a bookstore for languages, and I found some books that I really liked. And well, they were in French, but as my French is decent enough, I thought, why not give it a try? I had tried previously on Duolingo to use another language other than English. So I had tried previously to learn Italian through Portuguese on Duolingo. Kind of failed. I ended up going back to English because the two languages confused me too much. But I thought with French, as for me, French is a lot more different to Italian than Portuguese. I thought I would give it a try. And also, as my French level is higher, I thought I would struggle less. So I bought this workbook that I found of the method Assimil. Now, if you live in France, or you've been to France and have gone through language resources, you know that this is a very popular company there who publishes language learning material. They have their own method, and they have whole courses that you can purchase. They usually come with a digital download and books, but now they've also gone more online. Well, I purchased this workbook, and in the beginning I wasn't sure whether I needed the full Assimil package with it because I didn't want to purchase all that. I just liked the workbook. Like, the workbook was very colorful. It had all these little text boxes in different colors that explained rules. It had little pictures and graphics, and I really liked that because it was so visual. I would say I have become more and more visual. I guess most of us have in these days of more visual content. So instead of like a boring, dry, black and white textbook, or sometimes the blue-gray layout, this workbook actually had colors and different colors, and it really made the topics stand out. There's a clear distinction between this is the grammar rule and here's your exercise. So it just really motivated me to study. It also had these little smileys that you could fill out. You could say whether you did really well with a laughing smiley or not so well with this, so smiley and a sad smiley, and thus you could track your progress in the end. I really liked this. So then I was hooked on this Assimil book for a while, and I still have been using it. Actually, I have used it almost every month this year, and I will continue using it. I'm about more than 2/3 through because I quickly realized that it was quite hard. Like, the level was quite advanced because I bought the intermediate level right away, and noticed that I should have continued in a beginner level and continue this book later. Thus, I tried it in the beginning. I did the easier units. I then stopped for a while, went back to find some easier units, did some parts that were easier that I wanted to brush up, and then came back to it later. So now I'm thinking I didn't use it every month, but it's still one of my favorite resources that I've purchased this year. So, because I liked Assimil so much, I thought, why not give this whole method a try? It is a method that focuses a lot on, input and you figuring out how things work without going too much into detail. So it's a lot on reading something, repeating something, translating it. And yes, I found an app for the method. So I basically purchased the method and then I downloaded an app. Now, this is not the full method that you normally purchase in the bookstore, but it's an app, and the price was quite decent. I think it was around 50 euros US. And I accidentally did also purchase the French version. I had planned on buying the English version, so I was kind of shocked when I realized I bought the wrong version. I mean, who buys the wrong version? I really thought, how can I have been so stupid? I was really angry. I asked them to change it or to refund me the purchase, and then I decided, you know what? I already have that book that is in French that I've been using to learn Italian. Like, why not try the app? Give it a try. See whether I can learn both languages at the same time. Well, I have also been using this app continuously, you know, with little breaks here and there. And well, it's been okay. The French doesn't bother me that much. There are quite a lot of words that I don't know in French, but through the context, they become clear in Italian and then in French as well. I'm not trying to learn the French words that much because I feel like that would be like too much of a good thing, but I've managed to follow it. Now, the app itself turned out to be quite challenging. It has a very steep learning curve, but the progression is quite steep, just like the workbook. So you are thinking in the beginning, oh, this is fine, and then after 10-15 units you're already noticing that it's a bit difficult. So I have stopped and restarted it several times. I'm using it again right now, and I would definitely purchase it again, just probably knowing that it's gonna be quite hard. And yeah, in general, I think I dived into Italian thinking that this would be an easy ride because I speak all these languages, and yeah, well, I was a bit too overconfident, too overly confident for that. Now, the app basically first gives you a little story that you can play the audio off, and you can read through it. Next, you can record yourself saying each sentences of this little story. Then there will be a breakdown for vocabulary. You'll get a whole list of vocabulary. There will be little remarks on certain grammar topics, not too detailed. So if you really need to get a very specific grammar explanation, you will need another resource. The workbook has a longer definition for that. It's not super complete either. Yeah, I would say these are more resources to brush up on what you already know, what you've heard before, and to just go with it. You know, it's quite learn like a child learned. Just pick it up and don't worry too much about the exact rule. I do think there's a lot of good in that, and I actually like to use this method and come back to the more detailed grammar explanations at a later stage in my language journey. So I tend to expose myself first, hear all these different grammar constructions, and then later I will actually look up the rule. So for this app is quite good. Yeah, you have listening, you have speaking, you get your vocab. Next, you have another comprehension that kind of gives you an Italian, it gives you an Italian sentence, and you have to translate it, in this case in French. There's 2 exercises for that. One is a multiple choice, which is fairly easy, and the other one is the one where you actually have to translate then from your native language or your source language, your base language, into the target language, so into Italian. That is the tricky part. Is the part I struggle with. I make loads of mistakes, and you know, then you have the red color popping up in your screen and you start feeling a bit guilty. So I just decided at one point, you know what, it doesn't have to be perfect. I sometimes go back to these mistakes, like I take some notes into my notebook of things I thought were really bad, but other than that, I just let it go and I continue through the app. Now, once you're through about half of the app will pick up the stories from the very beginning. It will not show you the full story again, but the last exercise of one chapter will then be a translation again, but this time you have to speak into the phone. So they will show you a sentence in your source language. In my case, that was French. And then I had to speak the Italian sentence into the phone. So it's not a written translation anymore, but basically they give you a sentence and you translate it. You speak it into the phone. Once you completed all the audio registration, they give you an audio answer and also a written answer to what it's supposed to be. This is really, really helpful because it makes you speak, right? Of course, you're translating, but It gets you to think about how to just apply what you've learned, and you will faintly remember, ah yeah, I had a chapter on this kind of topic. So that has been great. I really love this resource. I wish I had used it for other languages that I learned before, but I would definitely consider using it for another future language. I don't know if it's that well known in the English speaking community, but they do have their language learning programs in English as well. Just purchase the right one. All right, so moving on. I then decided that I was at a good enough level to read a book. I was in Italy for I think 6 days on a little trip around the Lake Garda. I went to a bookshop and I thought, I heard some YouTubers recommend this book. Apparently it's not too difficult. I should just go and buy it. So I did. It is called Non ho paura. I'm not scared, I'm not afraid. This is the second Italian book that I have attempted. The first one went amazing, and I will also show you that one here. That was very easy. The story was something I was so familiar with that I had no problem understanding it, despite not knowing all the words. This one though was more difficult, and I have struggled reading it. I have restarted it several times, and yeah, it hasn't worked for me that well. I think it's just a too high level for me, unfortunately. I overestimated myself again. Which is funny because I tend to not overestimate myself other than when it comes to learning languages. Oh well. But yes, I had this book with me during my 3 months that I stayed in Italy, which is for another story. You can see that on my Instagram. And in another video I'm gonna make. So yeah, I carried this book with me. It was in my bag. I saw it every day. And every day I thought, yeah, I'm not gonna read it right now. So yeah, it's become more of a unnecessary item on my packing list. And I do think, let me think, no, I have not finished the book. I didn't want to take it on another trip. So yeah, it has stayed at home. I think I would just try it again in 2023. Probably start again from the beginning, because I did get into it a little bit. Like, I do remember the last time I picked it up, I actually got into it much more than I previously had, and I understood a lot more. This was after I had been in Italy for like 2.5 months. So I am thinking I'm slowly getting to the level where I can actually read it, right? So, lesson learned, be careful with books that you're trying to read. I did find another very good resource later. I'm gonna tell you in just a minute.